Because the people that are here today, I believe, are going to play a really important role, a critical role in helping us become more prepared to meet significant challenges in the irrigation industry. And that is, today we don't have enough professionals in agricultural irrigation. As I was talking to folks earlier today, I talked to a lot of business owners and people every day in the industry really lamenting their concern that they can't find qualified individuals to be designers, engineers, project managers, salespeople. And we really need to make sure that we're developing the next generation of future leaders. It's something that is always top of mind when I'm recruiting or trying to find individuals to fill important roles in my organization in quality and operations, for irrigation tools that are out there, different technologies and ways of doing things. And that really highlights the importance of making sure that we fill this professional gap within this industry. Without the professionals to help us navigate these new tools and technologies, we won't be able to broadly harvest the benefits of these new tools. And that would just be really unfortunate. I think that's even more important today than it has been in the past, because we're kind of meeting another challenge right now, some external challenges where we're looking at water shortages. It's been talked about out west, but the availability of water for a long time has been a constraint. But now you're starting to see it get picked up in mainstream media, where we're concerned about the levels at Lake Powell and Lake Mead and access to water in the Colorado River Basin. But that just extends way beyond the Colorado River. It extends into the mountains of California, across the plains of the United States. And we see this effect right now on corn prices with weather patterns in Brazil or weather patterns in other locations and uncertainty in markets resulting in water shortages. We see a lot of evolving things happening in our industry with regard to crop pricing, crop stability, and access to water. So that will be certainly a challenge. We also have changing climates and weather patterns that is affecting how and where we can grow crops. Recently, I was in Central America talking to some banana growers, and their concerns were that the typical rainy season that they would have to irrigate the banana crops in that market just aren't as reliable as they used to be. So they need to rely more heavily on irrigation, and that requires professionals to design it and to install it, to manage and maintain it. So that's even a challenge for folks abroad. So that, combined with uncertain legislation, maybe water rights becoming more of an issue in the future as things become more scarce, we are going to need a new class of bright future leaders to find inspiration under your faculty and your tutelage that can really help us navigate through these challenges to ensure that we can continue to grow crops to feed people and use water more efficiently as one of our most scarce resources. So we need your help to become better prepared to meet these challenges. I think this new group of future industry leaders and innovators will become savvy in these challenging areas that I mentioned before, and will help us harness the benefits of new technologies and all the benefits for crops and for efficiency that those things will deliver. So that's where, as I use my promotional spot here, I want to plea for assistance in this area to help inspire and challenge people to become innovators and leaders within our industry in the future, to support the important technologies and innovations that will be coming here to help us do a better job of growing crops. So I'll cede my time here, but again, Nicole, thank you for the opportunity to come talk today, and look forward to seeing many bright future leaders come from this group.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Greg. We certainly appreciate you taking the time to speak with us this morning. And as well, we appreciate Rainbird's support and sponsorship of this great program. So thank you so much. All right. With that, we will turn it over to our speaker, Jonathan Aguilera, with our first session of our series, which is navigating through different irrigation scheduling tools. One quick moment for some housekeeping rules. If you guys could just keep yourselves muted throughout the presentation. This way we can minimize on any background noise. During the presentation, if you can't hear or see something, please let me know and write in the chat box. If you have questions, the chat feature is also the best way to ask those. We will take some time to go through those at the end, as well as Jonathan will have some questions throughout. So the best way to answer that will be through the chat as well. And as a reminder, we are recording all live webinars, so they will be available after the fact if you missed anything or want to revisit a topic we talked on today. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Jonathan Aguilar with Kansas State University.
Good morning, everyone. Let me just take a brief moment here to share my screen, and I hope I am sharing the right screen here and not anything else. So again, good morning. Again, my name is Jonathan Aguilar, and I am really honored to kick off this event. Hopefully, this event will get you to learn something new, and as well as share it with others, because I think it's very crucial that we are all in the same page in trying to educate, and at the same time to help each other in managing the resources that we have, particularly what Greg has said. It's not only affecting the water itself, but as well as the commodity, the prices, and it will trickle down into all of our activities from time to time. So the way that I see it is we are going to have some interaction. I don't want to be just talking here. I would like some interaction, and so I will be asking you from time to time some questions. At the same time, I will have some stop points here and see where we are in terms of how we're trying to learn some of these things, and maybe be able to use those opportunities to ask or to answer some of your questions as well. So I would like this to be as interactive as possible. So without further ado, I'm going to talk a little bit about the irrigation scheduling tools and how to navigate through. I know that you have at one point or another probably have came across some of these tools, and one of the questions that you might ask is which one is better, which one is not, which one is applicable, which one is practical. So that's what I'm going to tackle today, and I hope to be able to share with you some of what we've learned so far. So just to give a brief background of myself, so I am boring in terms of the degree. I did agricultural engineering from my bachelor's to my PhD, and also one specialization, just land and water resources. However, my goal has also been the same, to help and empower the farmers in making informed decisions. And I am going to pass that baton to you to be able to educate people, to be able to help farmers eventually, or even just water users eventually, to be able to help them make informed decision. And that's what we are going to tackle today. As I have already hinted before, my background started with the Philippine agriculture, and probably not the place that you will think about water management, because we do get about 7 feet of rainfall. Yes, it's not an error there. 7 feet of rainfall every year, and plus or minus 5 feet, depending if we get more or less typhoon on the area. Because yes, we do get also about 21 typhoons pass through the area of responsibility of the Philippines every year. And so that's it's crucial to just put that into perspective. And so if I am talking here, talking more about the dryland or the very dry western region, do not be scared, because I do have that background also, that there's also some areas where there's a lot of rain, and we still need and also a very much drier condition, about 16 inches in Kansas in general. And when we are talking about typhoons in the Philippines, we're talking about tornadoes in the field. So it's just a different perspective. One thing that I have to make investment with is lotion. So when I move here in Kansas, I have to put on some more lotion rather than before, just because it's much drier condition where we are right now. And that actually brings me to the topic of being able to really manage the water very well, because we only get about where I am in Garden City, which is about a few hours away from the campus in Manhattan. We only get about 18 inches of rainfall where I am right now. Uh, so it is really a big difference. So anyway, I am here in Southwest Kansas, share serving the producers out here to be more good managers of the water, and that's some of the things that we've learned, and those are some things that I would like to share with you, particularly when we are talking about 80 inches of the whatever it may be. It may be from a lake, it may be from a field, or it may be from a dryland position. So anything, anywhere that it could get that water, it has the capacity. So, so with that quick background of mine, I'd like to know a little bit more about you. So I'd like to encourage you to type your answers in the chat box by just answering in your location, how much precipitation in a year do you get? I'd like so for everybody to be on the same page. I'd like it in inches. So feel free to type something on the chat box here, and just to have everybody have a good feel of what we are talking about here. I'll stop for a moment here to accommodate all of your answers. And 44 inches is what I've seen here is one place. 35 inches, 18 inches, 1 inch a year. Oh yeah, that's a lot. But in Arkansas, it's 40 inches in a year. So yeah, so we've got a lot of variations here in terms of the rainfall that we get. 11 to 12, 14, 8 and a half, 45 inches. So far, I'm not seeing anywhere where I started from. I mean, 5 feet. So I think I'm still the winner in terms of the most rainfall that I have experienced so far. Lebanon, 32 inches, 44 inches, 45, 46. Okay, so it seems like we do have a wide range of rainfall that we are getting where we are. So that gives us an idea of there is really a need to be able to manage the water as we see fit. And one of them is scheduling. So we still get some water. And that's what I usually try to emphasize. If we still do get water from rainfall from Mother Nature, then there is still some place that we should be talking about irrigation scheduling. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so why do we irrigate? I will just, since I am the kickoff speaker here for this Ag Academy, I just like to run through some of the reasons why we irrigate. One is to improve yield, to narrow that yield gap, increase the net return of the farmers. If we are talking about lawn or yards, we
Jonathan?
and at the same time reduce the risk that we have rainfall and timing and all. Nicole, did
You just cut out, so I think we missed part of what you were saying on this slide.
okay. So yeah, so I just want to run through some of the reason why we irrigate, and I'm going to run through some of these items here as we go on. Okay. So one of the things that I usually use is there's a experiment station in Scandia, Kansas, where we do have a good mid rainfall in terms of the range that we have in Kansas. And one thing that is really fascinating with this study is that in that particular field there was a couple of plots or several plots, but one of them is no irrigation, dry land in particular, and one irrigation at a time, two irrigation, three, or some irrigation at the strategic moment or even at the stage of the crop. So This one table itself proves that there is some opportunity for us to improve our production by just putting in one irrigation. So it could double or triple the yield by just putting a 1 inch of irrigation, just 1 inch at a very strategic point. So this actually is very true, and I've seen this not only here in Kansas, but also in the Philippines as well, where we had more rainfall that we are expecting. So by just putting that strategic that irrigation at a strategic point, we are able to already double, at least double our yield in some cases. The other thing that irrigation do is actually stabilize yield. So as you can see here, two graphs. One is for irrigated, the blue one, and the other is the red, which is for dryland. No irrigation at all. Just depends on the rainfall. Of course, there is going to be some dips and ups, and depending on the rainfall that we get or the year that we have. But one thing that you will also notice is, other than the yield for irrigated is higher than the dryland, is also the dips, the magnitude of those dips. So if there is a dry season, that the yield is actually going to really fall down to about 20 or 30 bushels per acre. But you could see that the dips on those dry years are really very drastic compared with an irrigated yield. And that's why that's why I think irrigation
Jonathan,
rain or not. Yes, Nicole,
you just cut out
am I
again.
cutting on?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I could I could not. I'm already hardwired here, so maybe just the the connection itself. So anyway, changes in significant decrease in irrigated acres, and the green ones are a significant increase in irrigated acres. And as you can see here, there's already a shift from the more drier area in the west, and now it's actually moving. There's a significant increase in irrigated acres. We were in Alabama a couple of years ago, helping them to establish some irrigated acres there. And again, one of the reason is to reduce the risk, because there are still sometimes that water or that rain is not available at certain timing, and it could be drastic for some of the production in the field. So it just reduces also the risk. Okay. Again, just a checkpoint here for everybody to participate. What do you think is the highest recorded corn yield a farmer got for the U.S.? Does anybody know? Does anybody would like to guess? Okay. 350 is one guess. Higher. 435. Actually, in 2019, uh, there was an increase in the winner for the corn corn yield contest was 616 bushels per acre. Yes, it's 600 irrigated on an irrigated category. It's very big because I think the national average for corn is only 167 during that year. And so we do have that capability to produce um, three times the current yield of corn varieties that we have. Actually, it's good. Probably I'll turn off my video for a while so to help with the bandwidth. Um, but again, the 600 bushels of bushels per acre of yield. So just to emphasize the yield gap that is going on, I have heard people or even sales people say that your yield gap is already started to increase once you get those seeds out of the bag already. And I think that's true. And there's a lot of things that a farmer could get into, anywhere from the weather to the insects and disease, nutrient management, seeding, weeds, and most importantly, water management. Yes, water management is up there in terms of those factors that would affect the yield gap. And when you talk about water management, there's several items in there: system efficiency, application efficiency, planning tools, scheduling, and even strategies. In terms of engineering, which is my background, we could only get to about 100% system efficiency, but the rest of it is going to be coming from any other improvement is going to be on other aspect of it, planning tools, scheduling, and others. For example, which brings me to the point of irrigation management. So when we talk about irrigation scheduling or irrigation management, it is part of the irrigation. It is part of management, but it focuses on the when and how much water is supplied. So that is basically the definition of irrigation scheduling: the when and the how much. So if you look at the definition of irrigation scheduling, you could definitely find definitions like this. It's the process of determining when to irrigate and how much water should be applied. And I think that is true. That's how we apply irrigation scheduling. But let's call this the 20th century definition, because this has been the definition before. Recently, some of the irrigation engineers have came together and tried to have some brainstorming, and they came up with another idea of irrigation scheduling. And I would associate this with Freddie and some of the group that are known in irrigation. And they redefined irrigation scheduling. It's the process of delaying any unnecessary irrigation with the hope that the cropping season will end before the next irrigation is needed. We would like to have this kind of irrigation scheduling, particularly if you've got a good distribution of that rainfall, wherein you would eventually not able to apply any irrigation at all. And that is still irrigation scheduling, trying to maximize what Mother Nature gives us. So if ever we could delay that irrigation, that is still part of irrigation scheduling. And I will revisit this definition later on as I go on with my presentation. But going back to the value of scheduling, I think there are direct and indirect cost in terms of the value of irrigation scheduling. One, you reduce the pumping cost, which in our area could be anywhere from $4 to $6 per inch per acre. It could also increase the net returns. If you don't have enough of the cost, then you could increase your returns. Indirectly, it also save your on input cost. One of the teaching, but also electrification could also reduce the input cost that you have. And more importantly, as Greg has already mentioned a while ago, also invest in the future value of water. So those are some of the points that we could value in scheduling. So how do we schedule irrigation? So I could categorize them into three major points: weather-based, soil-based, and plant-based. So basically, all of the tools out there could be categorized or could fall into one of these three categories. So my question: which feedback is better for scheduling? Is it weather-based? Is it soil-based? Plant-based? So again, I'll monitor the chat and just give me some feedback here. Which one do you think is better? B, soil-based, soil-based, plant-based, soil. So it seems like there's more that are saying that soil. The other one is combination. C, plant-based, A, weather-based. Okay, so all. Okay. So we do have a different point of view on what is the best uh, scheduling. So here is how I would start it with. So first of all, binoculars is not an irrigation technology. I say this with a grain of salt because survey says there are still people that are using their neighbor to to schedule their irrigation. And that was not even in my category. It's neither a plant nor a weather nor a soil based. So your neighbor is definitely not a tool for irrigation. But I say this with a grain of salt because again, if you look at the survey, this is based on the USDA National Agricultural Statistics survey. There are still some 7%, 6% of people that are basing their scheduling based on their neighbors. So hopefully their neighbors are correct, because otherwise they will also have a wrong method of scheduling, or even a wrong way of scheduling it. But as you can see here, there's soil sensing, there's plant sensing, and ET-based scheduling. Basically, again, boiling down to the three major categories of scheduling tools. So we are still way behind in terms of scheduling. Only roughly about, as of 2018, roughly about 22% of people are doing irrigation scheduling. 21% are doing scheduling, are doing something in irrigation when they try to turn on or off their system. So we're still lagging behind in terms of the adoption. If you look at different states here, I was not able to update this one, but this is based on 2013 data.
Jonathan,
50%.
you cut out again.
Okay. Uh, okay. Yeah, I'm getting some message here that my um, internet connection is unstable, so I apologize for that one. Uh, but anyway, going on here, soil sensing, soil sensing, plant sensing, and ET based, we are still below 50% adoption, and even in some states, we are still below 10% in some cases. So there's still some improvements that we could possibly do on this aspect of scheduling. So we would like your help to be able to spread the word and help others to do scheduling. So I'll touch base on some of the scheduling tools here, irrigation scheduling tools. So weather-based, some of the examples that I could probably say is that ET gauge or atmometer, evapotranspiration gauge, they are available. Checkbook method is another method that we call weather-based. CanSched in Kansas, DM, they call it in Texas, WISE in Colorado, Irrigation Cult in Pacific Northwest. There are a lot of scheduling tools that are available, and you could find some of those that are available that may be closer to your area at the irrigationinnovation.org. So if you've got your cell phone available, or capture this QR code, and it will get you to that website immediately. And also the FRET, which is the Forecasted Reference ET by NOAA, is also being available for you to be able to figure out another tool that is available in the field. So just I think this is still on a uh, uh, beta version, but hopefully soon, FRET would be another of those that we could see in our regular weather forecast later on. So that's the weather-based. Irrigation scheduling tools based on the soils. There's quite a few also some on them. Uh, I've seen a chat here that's also mentioned that OpenET is also one example. So yeah, that's true. Soil-based, there's several types of soil-based scheduling tools. The most probably the primitive I would say would be the gravimetric, but also the standard one is the gravimetric. There's also the tensiometer, the soil water potential, nutrient count, electrical resistance, electromagnetic, TDR, hand probe. These are all great measurement of soil, and some of them are automated. Some of them you have to be out in the field doing it. Some of them are based on experience, but all of them are soil based. That sometime I will touch base some of those later on. Another type of category would be the plant-based. This is where the thermal camera or the infrared camera comes in, the dendrometer, the microtensiometer, the osmotic or water potential. These are all some of the examples. Even some of the remote sensing, like the NDVI, aerial imagery, and visual. The visual that I say is some of the farmers will be out there saying, "Oh, seems like my plant is already wilting," and at that point, it's probably too late of a process. But again, those are types of plant-based. So you could find any of the tools in the market, and you could categorize some of them under this plant-based. So those are the three. So now that I have shown to you, or probably have uh, laid out to you some of those examples. So which do you think is better? Is it still A, weather-based? Is it B, soil-based? Or C, plant-based? Now that we have categorized some of those that are available in the market, which one do you think? Again, I'm going to be monitoring the chat here, and hopefully find some of your thoughts. If you've changed your mind, or if you're still going to stick with what you have answered before. Plant-based. I'm seeing some of the responses. Plant-based, weather-based, soil. So it seems like there's still that different. It depends on the resources or the plant types. That's true. B, which is the soil-based. All of them. Okay. So seems like some of you have already some backgrounds on this one, because actually the all of them are correct. If you are going to use one, either weather-based or soil-based or plant-based, I consider that already as a good start. As a good start. If you got two of them, uh, if you've got two feedback, that's actually even better. Again, this just builds some confidence out there in the field on trying to figure out if what your feedback is getting better. And then if you've got three of them, that's probably the best. Now you have three feedbacks that you have to navigate through and try to figure out which one is better. Because I would say that not one of the tool is perfect. Not one tool is perfect. Having two or three actually builds confidence, and I'm learning this as I try to interact with these
Jonathan,
tools.
you cut out again. If you could go back a few sentences.
Okay, so yeah, so if you have one, that's good. If you have two feedbacks, that's better. And if you've got three, it is best that you have some of those, because not I would say that not one tool is perfect. And I'm learning this from the some of the farmers, because having two or more in the field actually builds confidence in using them more independently over the other. And again, I would also emphasize that field visit is still necessary, even though you get three of these feedbacks available ready to you. But I would say that if you're using one of them, that's already a good start. But having two or three of them is going to be a lot better, because even the smartphone that we have, it still has some glitches. And that is the same with all of these tools. Particularly if a farmer is relying on this as their livelihood, they really have to have some backup feedback to be able to make those decisions on a timely manner. Okay. So I'll just mention some of the some of the few item tools that are available. CanSCAD, for example, but what we are doing here, we've got several versions of them. And again, as I mentioned, there are some states that have very similar applications like this. And you could get this from our website. We've also got some tips or brochures like this ogalalawater.org, soil monitoring. You could get that from this website, and also in some of the tips that we generate in our bulletins. Just to reiterate some of them, soil type is really very crucial when you are selecting the soil water sensor. The cost of subscription is still also something that you should be thinking about also. After sales support is vital. I would say this and have to emphasize it because not all of this, as I mentioned, not all of this are going to work better. Some of these are very critical in terms of its installation. And easy integration with your operation or the farmer's operation is really also crucial because even though you've got the best system out there, if if they have to do several steps in the process of getting those, it may not have a big impact in their operation as well. So some of the things that we have learned across some of the states, and this is something that we have learned in Kansas, in Oklahoma, and Texas as well. So and then also we have had some uh, demonstration of at least 10 different soil moisture sensors that are available. We've got access this in bit.ly that slash sensor demo. It was recognized in our ASABE, so it's still available in the YouTube. You could access this later on and get to learn some of those that are available. The way that I understand, some of those sensors are short-lived, and so some of them may not be available in the market anymore. So just a fast availability of those sensors are depending on the area that you have. More resources are available on this websites. Irrigation Today, they do have a good uh, down-to-earth explanation of some of those soil moisture sensors. Irrigationinnovation.org also have some websites that links that gets you to the other networks across the country that you could access. These are available. Ogalalawater.org also have some of those resources available. mylab.ksu.edu, we have some of those links available. ksra.edu/irrigate. Again, any of those links will get you in one way or another to some of these links that I have mentioned so far. So just for your curiosity, I know that you all are in your specific state as well. Where do you get your information related to irrigation management? I'm curious about where do you get those, and what type of information do you get from those? Maybe this is also something that um, uh, some of those that are in attendance could be able to learn something from you as well. So I'll be monitoring the chat again, and maybe if you could share where you get your information for irrigation management, we'll be happy to mention that, and then probably have and give information to other in the audience the way that you get that all. So the IA, the CMIS, MWD, that's one of those that I am seeing in the chat. Again, I think it's good to know that IA is one of them. ET data from CMIS, from the IA. So Nicole, it seems like there is a good number of people here that are getting their information from the IA. So that's good to know. Okay, so uh, let's keep moving, and again, you're free to chat, put in any information in the chat later on, but again, I'll just keep on moving with our presentation. Still have some time here. So far, I've got that. This is one of my stop point here. But seems like we still have a few minutes, and I'll be continuing because let's go a little bit deeper, because I mentioned before that not one of those tools are perfect, and that's where I'm going to go a little bit deeper in terms of what you could expect in performance wise of some of those tools, and that will give you an idea of how to navigate through and trying to figure out which one is better. And this is going to be just quick. So if you've got any questions later on, I will be happy to walk you through. So in a way, when we try to measure the amount of water in the soil, there's actually three ways. One is you could go through gravimetric. The other is by um, uh, uh, by the volume and also by the mass balance. So the gravimetric, some of the examples are by weight. Some of the examples are gravimetric method and the weighing lysimeters. Those are really looking at the weight of the water. As I mentioned, because soil water balance. This is actually the approach of the ET or evapotranspiration to try to figure out how much is being lost by evaporation, by transpiration, and also by runoff and deep percolation, and try to figure out how much rain irrigation you get. Those are the plus, and how much is stored in the field. So those soil water balance, and those are actually the basis for most of the ET based scheduling. So the water balance, it's like a bank account analogy. You put in some deposits, some withdrawals, what is available, and that is what is current on your bank. And that's basically how the CanSCHED operates, and some of those that I have already mentioned, the DM and the WISE that I have already mentioned a while ago. So another way of measuring the soil the water in the soil is by measuring the volume. However, this is a little bit elusive because there's only one way to really do it. Is the best way is the direct method or the gravimetric. But the other way, which we could incorporate some automation, is through sensors by measuring other surrogate properties. And this is some of the items that I will mention here. So soil moisture sensor 101, just a quick overview of what does it entails when you look at soil moisture sensors. Recent advances in soil moisture sensors are really very nice. The telemetry, you don't
Jonathan?
Nicole.
Yep, you just cut out. If you could go back a couple sentences.
Okay, yeah, sure. So, yeah, I've got the notice here that my connection is unstable, but I'll go through here very fast. Telemetry response times are good. Advances in soil moisture sensors, but the issues with the soil moisture sensors several decades ago are still there. The accuracy, installation, location, and calibration are still some of the issues that most of the sensors are dealing with. And one of the really real challenge of the soil water sensors is basically the amount of volume that they could test and the amount of water that is associated with it. It's very small amount, and that's probably an issue with most of the sensors in the market, is just to be able to detect that minuscule amount of water in the soil. So just to put you into perspective in terms of the soil moisture sensors, what do you call when you measure temperature? You call it thermometer. Vehicle speed, speedometer. Rotation, tachometer. Color, colorimeter. Voltage, voltmeter. But when you talk about soil water content, they call it moisture sensor. Does that sounds fearsome? Well, basically, yes, that's true. When we talk about soil moisture sensors, we are not actually measuring the water itself, but a surrogate property. And that's what is being talked about here. The only way that we could measure the sensor is by surrogate or some other method of non-destructive, loggable, compatible measurement. And that's where the soil moisture sensors are focusing more. It could either be based on the tension, neutron count, electrical resistance, capacitance, phase delay. As you could see, there's nothing here that says the water itself. This has something to do with the properties of the soil that is affected by the water. And so again, I know that I've sent out this handout already, so you could come back to this one. I'm just going to walk you through some of the limitations of some of these soil moisture sensors. For example, the tensiometers, it has some limitations in terms of the soil water of the texture and the depth that it could operate. Uh, Neutron probe, it's not going to be uh, applied throughout the have a good um, um, adoption of this just because it has some radioactive components in it. Electrical resistance, it has some advantages. It's actually one of the most cheapest in the market, but again, it has some issues in terms um, of the of the water tension that it could measure. Uh, as I mentioned here, advantages and disadvantages. Again, I'm just going through here. If you've got any questions later on, we'll talk about it. Electromagnetic soil water sensors, one of the issues that they really have is just trying to navigate through the air and the liquid water, which has something to do with the installation. So this is where the installation is going to be very crucial. If there's a space in between the sensor and the soil, that actually there is going to be a big issue on the measurement. And when you talk about the capacitance type, it's going to be on the permit. They are going to work on the permittivity, which again is going to be constrained by some of the volume that it is measuring. This is just some examples and some issues that may come up later on. The TDR is very similar. Again, it releases a signal, and the signal is being read by the computer itself, and has to be calibrated for each soil type. Again, if there is some air gaps in between, that actually is going to affect the way that it's measuring. There's several of them in the field that you could get, but I just want to mention some of the advantages and disadvantages of these soil sensors. Which gives me to the points again that the volume is crucial. At the same time, not one sensor is going to be perfect in all of it in its entirety. There's a lot of inaccuracies that you would get through. Um, um, it's affected by structure of the soil, the clay content, the salinity, and the temperature, among others. Again, soil variability is very common in the field. It just poses a lot of issues with some of the sensors that are going on. In fact, I got this from one of the presentations of Dr. Swartz with the USDA ARS, which again, based on the soil type, it classifies the sensors that could work and could not work in a way, based on without using any without going above and beyond the factory calibration. I mentioned it already a while ago, the sensor criteria selection. There's quite a few of them that you have to talk about. But with all of this, I probably would like to go back to that meaning of irrigation scheduling. That there is still a silver lining despite those inaccuracies that is available on most of the soil moisture sensors. If we could use these sensors to delay unnecessary irrigation, we are still able to use these sensors to the process of irrigation scheduling. So again, it's almost like your fuel gauge. If you know when is the next gas station, as long as you are still within that range that you could drive your vehicle, we're still able to use these sensors to the best that we could use in the field. So there's still some use in them despite some of these inaccuracies that I just mentioned a while ago. So sometimes it is not the how much anymore, but the when. Just focusing on the when could you irrigate, particularly if you've got some rainfall. we still get some rainfall here from time to time. And the way that you you still get anywhere from 13 inches or 8 inches to about 44 inches of rainfall in a year. So we still got to be able to maximize those rainfall that we get from Mother Nature. Integrating irrigation scheduling, most of the sensors now are very accurate, are very sensitive that it could all even sense the root zones. So we could also use them on different aspect of irrigation scheduling. Touching base with some of the plant-based sensors that are available in the market. Thermal infrared is probably some of those that I could mention. This is a shot from from California. So the satellite irrigation management. I think this is what some of you have been using for a while. But again, we are able to get those satellite thermal remote sensing to be able to use them and get the feedback from the plant. There's some issues about this one, particularly with the scale, spatial and time and temporal scale, but they are still very useful in one way or another. Again, I've enumerated here the advantages and disadvantages, but for the benefit of time, I'll just keep moving and I touch base with some of the other um, sensors. Airborne imaging is again some of those that are also emerging. Some companies are providing these services. Uh, it has advantages and disadvantages based on the resolution and also the cost. Again, sometimes it's also the turnaround time. It's just not able to catch up with the decision making time frame of the producers. UAVs is again another platform that we could use, thermal imaging using UAVs. It is the most cheapest so far, remote sensing platform. But again, it has some issues as well. Turnaround time is still one of those, and as well as the safety issues if you get aerial sprayers in the area. Ground-based thermal imaging is also one of those that we could use, but again, there's still some issues that we have to go through with some of these devices. There's also some work that is going on in infrared thermometry using IRTs, and they mount it on this on center pivot or other platforms. Again, it is able to represent the reduction in yield or the poor spatial coverage or some integrations with some other features. So again, going back to this image again, that if you have one, that's good. If you've got two, that's better, because not one tool is going to be perfect. It just gives you more confidence to making some of the decisions. And again, points back to the idea that there's still some work for our next generation of students to be able to figure out if we could improve these feedbacks one way or another. So with that, I'll open up the discussions or questions. I think I've got most of the information shared with you, and you could go back with either with this recorded presentation or even just the handouts that I have already sent out, or Nicole has already sent out. So with that, let's open it up for some questions if you have some.
If you have any questions for Jonathan, feel free to put them in the chat, or if you are comfortable, you can also ask verbally as well.
There's a question, but I could not read it. Unfortunately, I could not. It's on a different language. And I'm not sure if that is actually a question or something else. Copy from your slide. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Any questions? All right, looks like there are no questions. So thank
Well,
you for joining in to our first session as part of our 2021 Agricultural Faculty Academy webinar series. Thank you for listening and joining in on the Navigating Through Different Irrigation Scheduling Tools webinar. And a big thank you to Jonathan for leading this awesome session on the different irrigation scheduling tools.
well, thank you very much for your attention, and I hope I was able to impart with you something and learn some more in the next sessions.
Thank you, Jonathan. And with that, that wraps up our first session. If you are joining us for our next session, that does start at 2 p.m. Eastern, and that is our virtual tour of the Center for Irrigation Technology. As a reminder, you did get a separate link for that session. If you did not receive it or if you can't find it, just feel free to email me and I'll make sure I get that out to you. But see those of you that will be joining in for our 2 p.m. session. And again, thank you, Jonathan, and a big thank you to our sponsor, Rainbird. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.